Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books, and today we're going to be doing a little update and a little chat about how my book buying ban thing is going. If you are new here and you're not aware of the little book buying ban regime, let's call it my book buying regime. If you're not aware of what it is, I highly recommend you go and watch the video that I made a little while back explaining how it works. Basically, over the years, I've gone through so many different ways of having a book buying regime, and in my last video I was talking about how successful this one has been, and it has been really successful up until about this point, around like Christmas and going on holiday, and then it just sort of hasn't been looking quite so healthy. So I thought we would run through the stats of where I'm sitting at it, and I thought I would talk you through some of the new things that I've introduced with series as well, because I have added to it and made it a bit more complicated. My main motivations for sticking to and having a book buying regime at the moment is space and just that general existential dread feeling when you have so many books and you actually want to get to them, but there are just so many new ones coming in and it all becomes a little bit overwhelming. It is a constant game of Tetris trying to fit all my books on my shelves. I have this big one here. This is one of these 4x4 cube things from IKEA. I have a 1x4 that sits on top of it. I've got a 2x4 over there. I've got a big bookshelf. I've got a like 2x4, like so many bookshelves in the huge one in my room. I have loads and loads of bookshelves, and if I could ever be bothered I would do a bookshelf tour. However, I've recently counted all my books and I'm not sure I'm willing to subject myself to that. So on the whole, I do think that the regime has been working really well, and it's essentially I have to read 2 books in order to buy one. So I call them my book buying credits. So I guess another way of thinking of it is every book I finish gives me half a point towards a new one, or half a book buying worth of capacity. It's really achievable. It completely changes the number of books I'd be bringing in each year. It's only applicable to things that I am like spending money on myself. It doesn't apply to gifts. I'm just not. I think at some point I'd like to include them, but I'm still not at that stage. Definitely, because I'm already struggling at this point. But in theory, if I stick to it, it means I am buying half as many books as I'm reading every year, and it will help me see a trajectory in the direction that I would like to see it go in. But of course, things really fell apart, as might be evidenced by the book haul that I just did, because I didn't really apply it when I was overseas buying books, and I had a lot of subscriptions come in and I just sort of failed to keep up with the last slew of things. I've done a number of things to try and ease the situation. I've got rid of a bunch of my subscriptions now. I've resisted from pre-ordering anything else, and I am getting back into the habit of saying no to buying books until I get my tally up in the positive numbers once more. So I am actually trying to commit to recovering it from where it's at. So where is it at? My tally is currently at negative 22.5, which is horrific. It was a little bit worse than that, but I actually rejigged it and just started it afresh from the beginning of this year when I added in a few more parameters and other bonus points that I can get. So it's I started it around August last year, and if anyone else is into formulas and Excel spreadsheets, then I'm sure you could probably imagine that starting it midway through a year was just one extra step that made the formulas more difficult. So we're starting it from the beginning of 2023. The number is definitely bad, but I don't think that it is unachievable. So I wanted to walk you through what my plans are going forward. At this stage, there are still a couple of pre-orders I did many months back that I'm expecting to come in, and I think by the time they arrive I probably still won't be in the positive, but I'm hoping to start trending that way. I pretty much just have 1 monthly subscription coming in, and for a little while I don't think I'll be ahead of things enough to have credits for that, but they will still be counting negatively towards, you know, making that tally worse. So it's going to be a small battle against a couple of pre-orders and that subscription. However, I'm not really planning to stop that subscription, so that is the hill we are going to die on. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to talk you through what it's looking like at the moment. So I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet on my laptop and I'm going to share the screen with you guys so you can see what I'm talking about and see how it's all working. Okay, so what you're seeing now is my reading tracker spreadsheet. I think I've shown this to you in little parts previously, but I've never shown it to you. I don't think I've done a walkthrough yet. I think we're probably due to do that. So I have a couple of tabs down the bottom, which you can just see in the screen there. And the one that I'm most interested in showing you guys is this statistics page. So if I go to that one, you can see there's a bunch of stats here, but let's scroll down to the bit that matters. Right, this here. This is the part that I'm using to track my buying and spending and reading. So you can see that there are 7 books that are read, 27 books bought or bought secondhand, and I have 1 point that comes from the series bonus, and the series bonus is the most new thing that I've got, and then that tells me on my buying capacity, which is negative 22.5. So that's how it's working. If anyone's interested, I will leave these on so you can have a look at the kind of formulas I'm doing. These are really simple and nice and simple thanks to the fact I did start it again from 23. It's really just looking at my other tabs. Down here, my collection is just everything that I have on my shelves, everything I own, which has loads of data about those books. And then I've got the books read, which is everything I've read, so that obviously captures anything I've borrowed or got rid of. And then I've got a series tracker, and that's also obviously pulling data from there as well. So if we get more into the nitty-gritty of it, I will show you the series that's been going on. So I've got a lot of series, and this is the statistics that I was working on. I think over the Christmas times you've not seen any of this. I have like hundreds, literally over 300 series that I have either started, acquired, not started, finished, very few finished. You can see that there are 304 unfinished series, and that there are 40 finished and 31 that I've decided not to continue with. It's an enormous number, and I found it quite shocking to see, but when I thought about it, I realized that, you know, I have hundreds of books, and a lot of them are fantasy, and many fantasy books are part of a series. So I think that considering I've got over 1,000 books, that's probably actually quite a logical number to be coming back with. However, it's shocking to see that there are 300 series that are unfinished. So this is why one of my reading goals for this year has been to focus on this. Again, I'm probably due to do a full video focusing on this, but if I don't get around to it, that is basically my main reading goal for 2023, is to really focus on continuing and finishing book series, because it's one of the things I'm so bad at doing. Every year, at the end of the year, I try to buy the next book in all the series that I'm reading, if I've read part of that series in that year, so that I continue reading it, because I realized a couple of years back that half of the reason that this has got so bad is because I've just sort of had so many books that it wasn't visible that I didn't actually go out and get the sequel or borrow the sequel or do something like that. So I wasn't continuing the series, I was just forever starting new ones. So looking at these stats here is obviously something I need to encourage myself to do. And it also is kind of nice to have a bit of a bonus when it comes to the buying capacity with series, because they are, or feel like a bigger effort. So I am awarding myself bonus points, and it's a scaled range of points depending on the length of the series. Originally I just had an extra half point that I would award myself if I finished any length of series, but after thinking about it and talking to a few people about it, I've decided that that will actually go up. So that when I finish books like Outlander or A Game of Thrones or How to Train Your Dragon, those are much, much bigger commitments, and so I'm going to get more bonus points for it. I'll show you some of the other stats whilst we're here. You can see the breakdown of the series that I own. This is mixed together of both read and unread. So most of them are trilogies and duologies, but there's actually more that are 5 or over than there are just of the 4s, the quartets. In terms of the ones I own, this is like for looking at how much of the series I own. So this is saying that for 233 of those, or 50%, I own less than half the books in the series. And then it's kind of split evenly between the ones that I own all of them for and the ones that I own somewhere between 50 and 100%. In terms of completed, there's that really lovely statistic there that shows that nearly all of those 300 and whatever books, that series that are unread, those are all less than halfway done. And I think that number, the fact that so many of them are just like not even at the halfway point, particularly considering we can see that a lot of them are duologies and trilogies, has me very worried that there's just one book being read in series and that's sort of it. So based off these statistics, I've decided to add this in. Now I didn't know a more elegant way to do it than this, because so this is looking very extensive. It goes down to 30, and what this is doing is it will tell me how many series that I finished that are of this length. And so at the moment I finished 1 trilogy in 2023, and that gets me 0.75 points. In the simplest terms, for every book in the series I finish, I get an additional 0.25 points. So obviously when you get up to 10 books, it's something like 2.5 points bonus. That's on top of just the standard half point I get for every book. So I'm hoping that now that I've changed this, I might stand more of a chance of sort of clawing back some capacity on the buying scheme. 22 books, to come back that far, I'm going to need to read over 40 books, and I'm not trying to read a lot this year, so that's going to be a really long haul game to recover the collecting I have literally already done within under 2 months. And I think this really highlights like the problem with me struggling to get to my backlist of books, which is how many books I am capable of bringing in, and that is obviously with a holiday thrown in, and holidays for me are always book buying time. So I have another big holiday coming up in October, so I think it would be a really good goal to try and get myself a little bit of capacity to save it all up for October so that I have some actual legal leeway to buy more books when I'm away then. So that could be a really fun goal to do. We've got a number of months and I think that that's actually quite easily possible. It just depends how good I am and how well I can exercise self-control in saying no to books. It's kind of fun because it means I have a list of stuff I really want for birthdays and Christmases, but it's so hard in the moment to say no to stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so at the moment there's obviously hardly any statistics in here because I've only finished one series so far in 23. I haven't read that much. I will do a big wrap up for, well, a big wrap up for January and February when we get to the end of the month. So maybe in the next video we'll talk about that, and I can talk about how my reading's going in terms of how much I'm reading this year. The other thing to talk about is the DNF points. Now, I wasn't going to put points towards DNFs, and DNF stands for did not finish. So I wasn't going to, but then I thought there's actually some power in deciding not to continue a series. Not always, but often there is, and often I feel a little bit trapped in series and it's kind of hard to step back and go, look, I'm no longer interested in this, or it's like DNFing a book but on a bigger scale. So this year so far I have DNF one series, and I've decided that I will just get a generic 0.25 extra points for every series that I say, I'm not doing that anymore. Now, for those that want to see a little bit more in terms of how this is tallying these kind of things up, I will show you because I'm really proud of that. If we go to my series tracker page, I have the name of the series, the name of the author, the length of the series, the year that I finished the last book in, a little progress bar, how many, like percentage wise, this is essentially the same thing in two different formats. This is where I can tick DNF, how many I own, and the status, and then it goes on and does this. Now, I have got this all automated because it has been my goal to not have to input data over multiple tabs. I've got like 4 main tabs that I'm putting data in, and 2 are more of the background data. So I've tried to get this one. This is a very formula intense tab. So I put this in manually, and I put the series length in manually, but beyond that point almost everything else is generated. So the author name is using a VLOOKUP formula that is actually having a look at what the first book is that pops up to try and find what the surname of the author is. The books will automatically populate themselves. I've got enough room currently for about a 21 book series. So this is also using, this is actually using a combination of formulas. As you can see, it's quite complicated at the top there, but basically it's an index formula that is able to look at the name of the series here and go across to my collection tab, and it can match it up with the series title that's in this column to pull out this, and we've got series names, numbers here. It's all really complicated, so if spreadsheets aren't your thing, you're probably very lost, but if you do like spreadsheets, then maybe you're following along. It's able to also reference off that particular other tab to see whether it's been read or not, and it will populate them depending on whether I have the books. So A Court of Silver Flames is the last book that's out in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series at the moment, and the way that I am tracking this with bonus points is that I know that there are 4 books. There are 4 books that are currently published and available, and therefore I have completed the series. So this is probably the trickiest bit to decide how to manage, and I only get those bonus points when the series are finished. It's not as I go through it I get an extra point. So for Skyward, which is the series I have currently got the 0.75 points for, that is because it's a trilogy. There are more books coming in that series, but for now I am up to date with it. So as soon as I finish Cytonic, which is book 3, I got awarded the extra 3/4 point. And what will happen, of course, is that when book 4 is released, I will go back to this column here and I will say that it's now a 4-book series rather than a 3-book series, and that will take away the bonus point because it will no longer be completed, and it will serve as further motivation for me to go out and get the next book and continue reading it and finish it, so that I don't start lagging behind on series unintentionally. It's meant to act there as this sort of almost lingering threat that I've so kindly left for myself. Given that there are hundreds of series, that is sort of the main motivating way for me to keep up with series as they're being published as well. The other fun thing it will do is that if I tick the DNF box, it will turn the whole column, the whole row grey, so that I have a bit more of a visual, and it will change what was in there. So there's lots of really fun things this can do, and I'm stoked about it. Probably the hardest formula to work out was this particular one here that you can see. This is using a little cluster of X lookup formulas to basically look through the data that's in this whole workbook and work out whether I have read the last book in the series yet, and if I have, to work out what year that was completed in, and that allows me to tally it up in my statistics from 2023 onwards. So that is basically where I am at with my book buying regime. It is in a interesting place, but I do think that the spreadsheet is super fun, and I am definitely enjoying trying to build this thing so that it's super awesome and can do everything I want it to do. So let's all cross our fingers. I think it's possible to recover from this point. I really hope it is. I'm quite determined, so I think that the October goal is a really good motivator for me to say no to books right now and to focus on series where I can accrue some extra bonus points towards bringing that back towards 0, and then hopefully getting it above the line and into the positive again, so that I can start actually accommodating for subscriptions, or the subscription, and for any books that I want to purchase in the future. And I'm feeling quite hopeful that this is going to, in the end, at the end of the year, and let's hope it is. I will do a check-in later in the year, but I hope by the end of the year that this will turn around my book buying habits so that I'm not totally overwhelmed with books, and to see that my TBR is actually coming down. So let's cross our fingers that that happens. So let me know in the comments down below whether you're on a book buying regime and if it's working for you or not. I would love to hear your thoughts, but other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.